I would like to thank and welcome everyone for being here today. We are here to celebrate the 96 wonderful years of Meridel Lesueur's life. My great-grandmother did not want us to mourn her death, but rather celebrate her life. I would like to welcome anyone if they would like to speak or share anything. Please speak with Barb Tilson or Faye Brown. I'd like to read a poem that my father wrote, Mark Tilson. I will never say goodbye, grandmother. You and I are never apart. My blood is you. 96 years of beauty and struggle through the century you called the bloodiest in all history. Survival is a form of resistance, but you have taught us all to do more than just survive and resist. You have taught us to be with one and with all who demand their freedom. I will never say goodbye. You and I are never apart. You are the whisper in my ear to raise my voice when it would be easier just to be silent. When the hairs on my back when the hair on the back of my neck stands up, and at the sight of injustice and suffering, it is you. When my blood is filled with rage caused by oppression and greed and racism, you are with me. Look what your eyes have seen, from the horse and buggy to a trip to the moon, factories filled with slaves to the right to organize. You have stood with and written about them all, the loggers in the north, the people in the south, and the women who have birthed and fed them all. Your dread road was to bring the truth to new eyes and opening up minds to the freedom. I will never say goodbye, you and I never apart. You are the mother of many movements, all you have touched, claim you as their own. To some are a mother, earth mother, to others a party leader, and more, the voice of women who need to be heard. You will never be apart. You will never be gone because you are a part of all of us that you have touched. I will never say goodbye, you and I never apart. Your next journey to a new place is not an end. It is just another trail that you need to clear for all of us to follow. When I need to find my life in your love, that speaks to me in the wound of my grandmother. Our blood, our family, our circle of love will never be broken. We will resist and we will survive, you and I never apart. I would like to ask David Tilson to please come up here.
There are some seats up here for people who are standing up. There's some folding chairs in the aisle and up front here. And there's some, if people could just raise their hand if there's any seats, places next to them where people could sit down so that everybody who's here can have a place to sit. I don't think I need the microphone. I do need the microphone. What Meridel taught me was to transcend what other people told me were boundaries and barriers. Mark talked about in the poem that Kimberly just read, and other people have remarked that she was able to transcend so many different communities, that she was clearly a feminist, clearly a labor organizer, clearly identified with the struggles of Native peoples in this country, and when she went to Nairobi and came back, very clearly an environmentalist, a historian, a poet, a leader in the alternative press and literature movement, and that was miraculous. For me, she told me that the traditional disciplines, she would talk to me, and in the same paragraph, talk to me about quantum mechanics and Walt Whitman and Leaves of Grass and Finnegan's Wake and the latest research that she read in the latest article in Scientific American. And it wasn't that she fought against the differences between these different areas of thought and these different movements. It's that she just didn't have any patience for people who told her that they were different. Good art was really no different than good science, and good religion wasn't really any different than good politics, that people were communicating with each other And a good artist, a writer, a poet was talking about the world and trying to understand the world and trying to communicate what they understood about the universe and the planet, and that was what a scientist was trying to do if they were true to themselves, and that's what a poet was trying to do, and that's certainly what an organizer and somebody who was trying to organize labor people in their shop, or people who were trying to organize their communities against a strip mine or in protection of their native cultural lands, that all of these people were trying to understand their world and communicate the truth about their world, and that there wasn't that difference. And that was very confusing to a lot of people, but I grew up believing that. And the other thing is that she had so much hope and faith in people, and sometimes it would just infuriate me. I'd say, Grandma, you know, the American people just elected Reagan for the second time. I have a right to think they're stupid. And she'd scold me and say, the people aren't stupid, and people organizing together are the only strength that we have. And she prophesied this global village and this internet and this World Wide Web. Before any of us knew what it was, she was talking about the global village and talking about how wonderful it was that we were able to know what was going on all across this planet immediately. And she told me about the weeks it took and the rumors they heard about the Mexican Revolution before they got any facts about it. And it took weeks to just get that kind of information, and how important it was to all of us as an empowering force that we were no longer little corn villages in Iowa, but we were truly a global village. And I had a hard time understanding that. And so now I expect, as my daughter and I get more and more into our web server, to see Meridel cruising around cyberspace. And I think she's with us, and I think she couldn't, you know, we did get her a laptop computer, but it was, you know, her fingers just didn't fit the keyboard. But I think now they do.
I would like to introduce Clyde Bellecourt and the Bear Runner Singers.
Good. Thank you. My Indian name is Nigan Nawewidan. I'm the thunder before the storm. I kind of like that a lot better than Clyde. I think it was about 6 years ago when we gathered in Minneapolis to celebrate the 90th birthday of Meridel. And Jan Attridge was commissioned to do the poster, and it was shortly after the birth of my son, Maingans. Those of you who have that poster or have seen that poster, he is the little boy that's riding on the back of the wolf. Maingans, he's a little wolf, and Meridel in the background. I wasn't shocked when I heard that Meridel had passed on to that spirit will. It was merely an awakening because we knew of her health condition. I didn't know her as well as probably a lot of you in this room, but I've heard of her, and I've seen her on several occasions. And whenever she was around, you could always feel her strength. She was one of the golden threads in that blanket that covers all of us in the peace movement and gives comfort to us. About 4 or 5 months ago, I participated in a celebration of another great lady by the name of Gladys Spotted Bear, Gladys Bissonnette, who challenged us in 1973 to stand up once again as warriors and defend the women and children at Wounded Knee. So when I think of Meridel, I also think of Gladys Bissonnette, a peace activist on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, who challenged our community in 1973. So I think of them as being the spiritual threads of this blanket that covers each and every one of us, this comfort and strength that we receive from great people like Meridel. So it's a deep honor to be asked by this family, who I feel are part of my family also, to be here today to be able to honor Meridel with the memorial songs. There are two songs that are going to be sung. The first one is going to be a memorial song, and the second one is going to be the American Indian Movement honoring song, a song that we have used since our formation in 1968. Whenever we send somebody on their journey, this is a song that is sung to take them into the spirit world. In 1973, this song, of course, was heard around the world when Indian people occupied, liberated a little hamlet on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation called Wounded Knee. So before we sing that memorial song, I'd like to ask my brother here, Dale Means, to come forward and offer a few words of comfort and a prayer to the family and to all of us that are gathered here today in this circle of life as I look at it. You know, Black Elk talked about someday when we would witness what we're witnessing right here today. It's 1935 when he went back up on that hill after witnessing as a little boy the massacre at Wounded Knee. He went back many years later in 1935 as an old man thinking that he had failed because he could see the government houses, the dwindling land base, the alcohol and drug and the diseases, the loss of the Black Hills. Black Elk went back to seek a vision of the future. And as a little boy, he said that the sacred hoop was broken and the sacred tree had withered and died. And they say that in 1935, when Black Elk was up over the, looking at that scene where that massacre took place, that the Creator came to him on the third night of his fast. And the Creator told Black Elk that he had not failed. The Creator told Black Elk that the sacred hoop of life would be back again someday. And the roots, he said, the roots of the sacred tree were still alive. And people from all nations would come back and nourish the roots of that tree, and it would grow again. And this is what we are really witnessing here today, that sacred hoop that has been mended. And it always seems to be mended when we lose someone with greatness in our community. It seems like it's only then that our families all come back together, the four races of mankind come back together. So she is still weaving that sacred hoop of life. And we know that sacred tree that Black Elk talks about that grows again and blooms again today. It's witnessed at every Sundance that we attend today. So at this time, I'd like to ask Dale Means to come forward and say a few words here in prayer. Then I'm going to ask the drum to do a memorial song. And following that, we're going to sing the honor song.
Thank you, Clyde. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the family for this great honor. I feel humbled to come before you on behalf of Meridel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dale Meads. I'm the brother that nobody can ever remember my first name. I'm kind of like Mark and David's brother. What's his name? That's what they always say about it. But really, this is an honor. Kind of surprised. A lot of people in Indian country, our people, as Clyde said, didn't know Meridel personally, or didn't know too much about her. But when I met her, I could tell right away what a real gentle person she was, caring, and honest. And I felt honored. So I just want to say that to you. But this is really an honor. And I understand that Meridel didn't want everybody mourning and crying around. So we're going to ask you all to stand, and we will give thanks for this and celebrate that she is going to the spirit world. O Tukashla leampetuki pilamia lila wopila. Tukashla, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for all sacred things. We ask that you give us strength and guidance as we go on through life without our friend. Tukashla, we ask that you pity the family, friends of Meridel, look after them, give them strength, and let them know that she is in a better place. She has completed her task. And gosh, Lord, we give thanks for all that you have provided, for giving us the time with Meridel. We thank you. O Pilamia, Mitaquias.
American Indian movement honoring song. Good, thank you.
I'd like to introduce Barb to come up here.
Meridel was a very wonderful inspiration and nurturer to me as both a family member and an artist, as she was to so many people, to so many of us gathered here, as well as generations and generations of people. I wanted to bring a poem of hers that I adapted. She had written when gatherings were happening all over the country, when the last of Joe Hill's ashes were scattered. And I adapted her poem along with some writings of his and the song Joe Hill. And this will move in and out of the song and poetry. Please join me in singing the singing part. It's called Who's Singing in Us Tonight? Who's singing in us tonight? Paul Robeson, Mother Jones, Florence Reese, Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, said he. I never died, said he. He never died, this song will never die. Before the First World War, Joe Hill belonged to the IWW. He sang against that slaughter, sang a song of solidarity from Washington to the Iron Range. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man. Says Joe, I didn't die. Says Joe, I didn't die. My body, said Joe, oh, if I could choose, I would to ashes it reduce, and let the merry breezes blow my dust to where some flowers grow. Perhaps some fading flower then would come to life and bloom again. And standing there as big as life, and smiling with his
went on to organize, went on to organize.
Who's singing in us tonight? Aunt Molly Jackson, Mike Skidey, Earl Robinson, Meridel Lesueur. Joe Hill's ashes were sent around the world in little envelopes, and we opened one here. Now the world's struggle rises from the ashes. He sings now in the world hurricane of the global dawn, in the great thundering cry of the peoples of the world, the song of the workers now rising, singing. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe, I never died, says Joe, I never died. He shouts, workers of the world, unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. Let each stand in his, in her place. A better world's in birth, he sang. Don't mourn, organize. From Chiapas up to Montreal, from Taiwan to Brazil, where workers strike and organize, 'tis there you'll find Joe Hill, 'tis there you'll find Joe Hill. We sing together the mighty song, let freedom ring. We sing together the mighty global song, arise, you prisoners of starvation. We have been not, we shall be all. We never die, we have the future in us. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, said he. I never died, said he. Who's singing to us tonight?
This program's gonna last a few hours, so if you guys get hungry or thirsty, there's some cookies and something to drink downstairs. So we're gonna take 5 minutes and we'll be back. I'd like to introduce my younger cousin, Molly Tilson.
Hi. I'm going to read something that I wrote. When I think of my Grandma Meridel, the first thing that comes to mind is her smile. The way her face lights up when you walk in the room and she sees you. The way every visit she has a new story waiting for you. If I could describe my great-grandma in one word, it would be beautiful. She was very beautiful, especially in spirit. Many people thought about her as an activist, poet, anarchist, socialist, and many other things, but to me, she was the wonderfully strong great-grandmother that I know and love. When I was first told about the passing of my great-grandma, I couldn't breathe. I never thought she could just be gone. Then I never thought she'd be gone. Then I realized she wasn't gone. Her spirit was still among us. I just kept thinking of the image of her sleeping. That's it, just sleeping, peaceful. Everyone thinks of her differently. Everyone imagines her differently. But we all love her with all our hearts. I'm afraid my memory of her will slowly slip away until someday it's gone. But I know if I keep reading her books and remembering her face and stories, she'll always be with me and never die, not in my heart. Grandma Meridel was strong. When she would grab your hand, you could feel her power, feel the strength coming into you from her heart. You could really feel her. We all knew her differently, but we all loved her the same. Please welcome Larry Long.
It's hard and it's lonely to lose someone close to us. This last week I was with my mother, and we almost lost her on Wednesday and Thursday, and she made a return back. And when I came back, I heard of Meridel's passing. And Meridel gave us and gives us room and space to be who we are and to rejoice in the possibilities of our daily lives. And Meridel gave us and gives us song. I am the water, I am the spring, I am the water, can you hear me sing? I am the water, I am the spring, I am the water, can you hear me sing? I will soothe your body when your body aches. I will soothe your spirit when your heart it breaks. I will turn your deserts into fertile fields. I will turn your valleys into rolling hills. I am the water, I am the spring, I am the water, can you hear me sing? I will pierce your vision, I will pierce your flesh, I will rise to greet you on your day of rest. I am the water, I am the spring, I am the water, can you hear me sing? I am the water. From muteness, out of silence and pain, there comes a song. It rises from the earth, the exploitation, work, and sorrow of the people. It rises from struggle, kept alive in our wonderful multiplicity, and sounds the tenderness of our solidarity. Bird songs, people songs, from the struggle and death, from the lost and gone mute, out of the corpse of our death we sang. Can you hear me
great-grandmother Meridel was always telling me to write down everything I saw and heard and felt. I never really understood why until a couple of days ago. When she left this world physically, her imprint was immortalized in ink. So even though you can't see her on the outside, if you close your eyes and listen, you can feel her in your heart as I read these thoughts on and for Meridel Lesueur by Barb Cordy. They met on July 4th, 1994. Sightly, through branches, shiny glow, auburn peach, swaying rays, brought in through windows, this special warmth around your chair.
Please welcome Louis Almahue.
Thank you. Can I use this, in fact?
On the bottom of it.
Okay? Okay. I'd like to thank the family for the honor of being here. I have some really good memories of Meridel. I feel very thankful for all the ways she encouraged and affirmed. I didn't get to meet her until the late 70s, I believe. I was education director of the African American Cultural Center, and we had invited in Gwendolyn Brooks to do a reading, and Meridel came. And I certainly had met her before and didn't know who she was, but she came up to me and asked me if I would introduce her to Gwendolyn Brooks. That was one of the happier occasions in my life. What I will miss most is the vibration of her voice in the body, in the heart, from hers to mine. That voice, straight up from the greening earth, moistened, inspired, fired by God's wine. That Midwestern voice, so authentic, so true, has done its work so well. It transcends all passing and lingers in all breathing, in all beating. She was a witness to the dawn. The doorway to my home is made of light. Restore and return the body. Call it home. Walk toward me now. Let all tongues ring. Quicken the thighs and breasts. The breast clangs. Strikes the horizon bell. All quickens. All things open in the she-rain. Growing happily, we return to our herds, to our hogans, to jingling tassels, belling of sheep. Someone is drumming, beating the sky. Corn reaches up, she-rain reaches down, juices spring out of dry thorns, forgotten bones flesh with forgotten men. I entered the living water. It fell upon my starving bones, blue corn tied with white lightning, and the rains come unto me too. Restore us all, the land, the man, the woman, child breast, insect, all creatures, beast and herbs, restore us here, tie us with a blue beam. The great squash, surround of rainbows. Listen, the rain comes upon us. Restore us. You, grandmother, are old and weathered like Mother Earth. You, grandmother, move slowly, inevitably like seasons. Winter is your mantle now, royal in your season. You, grandmother, speak words that rise with the wonder of eagles. On your joyful mighty wings I fly into a sun of possibilities. You, grandmother, hot woman, with the fierceness of she-wolf, knows the land like a wise woman knows her body and its oneness to the earth. You, grandmother, nurture with a potent milk. Your children stand early in a harsh day and a treacherous night. Grandmother, you are pact signature to this pact we have made with life, for freedom, for living room, for breathing space. This earth is home. You and your children are beings in a bridge of all colors. I see strong feet on mighty planks, crossing over, crossing over. Some walk, some run, the groping see, the fallen stand, moving on up to brightness and vibrancy, to a place of sharing and collectivity. A real living world with living room for all those that love life so much that no man can see himself without seeing his sister. No woman can see herself without seeing her brother. No human can see themselves without seeing the water, without seeing the wind, without seeing the trees, without seeing the earth, without seeing the leaves, without seeing this bright blue-green planet. This bright blue-green planet, this sweet earth, this sweet bitter earth, this sweet spinning blue-green earth, this sweet earth flying, sweet earth flying, sweet earth flying through the thunder.
We have not really any intermissions planned at all. And we just wanted to let you know again, especially anyone who came in late, just how we've organized, because we wanted to have a lot of, to create a time and a space for people to come together and share and say and sing whatever they would like. And we plan on going until 6 or 7, somewhere around there. And there is coffee and some light refreshments downstairs. You should feel free at any point that you need to get up to just go ahead and do that. If you want to visit, go downstairs and visit. And we will keep things happening up here. If you brought some things, there are people, and both family members and others that were asked or planned on speaking or saying things today. If you have something that you brought, please see me. I'm Barb Tilson or Faye Brown over in this area. There also will be a time later in the program where we will just invite anyone who would like to get up and say something very spontaneously to do that. So we really want this to be a relaxed and informal time to celebrate and share and talk and be able to be together and share what's in our hearts. Thank you.
Our next MC is my cousin, Lasha Tilson. Okay, I did not. Okay, first, I'm going to read something I wrote Thursday when I found out about my great-grandmother's death. The numbers keep changing. They're never going to stop. One loses so much, but at the same time, the same one gains. Others feel pain, but the pain is just fear, afraid of what is no longer visual, but still around, because my eyes will never close. I had a great spirit, that when I was down, I looked at the memories and was glad she was always around, knowing the legend was going to a place minute by minute growing strong. The mind was always thinking, the body always running, the eyes always searching, the mouth always teaching, and the heart still today is around, in the earth, starting with the ground. Off to a better place, come visit soon. I want to look at you again and think to myself, this woman is free. Remember? I do. When for 37 minutes I held this baby boy that wasn't there, but you'd heard him cry. So with the strength of my arms and the sound of your voice, we picked this baby boy out from under your bed. And I sat right next to your bed until you told me the boy was gone. My arms as a cradle, and with both our voices combined singing, making sure this baby boy was doing fine. These were the kind of things I did, but I didn't know why. You had the gift to make me do this. Is the gift gone? No, it's just stronger. I felt it shoot into my blood as I saw your face cold, but no words could say the way I felt. You're my inspiration. Every time I didn't want to take another step, I thought of you, and with a proud feeling, put the bottom of my rubber on the ground and stood. Now it's time I'm going to stand, and you're right next to me. I would like to ask if Agnes Smuda is in the audience, if she could go back there. And I would like to introduce my uncle, Dan Tilson.
Everything's so beautiful, I guess I have a really hard time following. I haven't prepared anything yet. I knew Meridel would just come to me if I came up here. I know I could talk to her. Meridel, every minute with her was like thousands of minutes. Every moment was maybe millions of moments. She taught me growing up about the birds and the wolves, people, relationships, relationship of the global relationship of everything. Her minutes, moments now are timeless, and she was timeless, and she will be timeless. And this program tonight might seem timeless. Most, if not all, of her grandchildren you will probably hear from, much more talented than myself. And I'm very proud of them all. And I think it's just beautiful, the things that everyone in the family have come together, and really, to tell you the truth, Meridel put this together, and honestly, no one knows it. She came to all of us one at a time. She's here, she's with us, and she always had a great sense of humor. So enjoy it. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce a great friend of Meridel's, Martha Roth.
one of the strengths of Meridel's work was that it was never personal. Use the wire. This one. One of the strengths of Meridel's work, is that better? I'm such a dummy.
You can use it.
Actually, this is good, but how do I do it?
Yeah.
I'll switch it on. It works better when it's switched on.
Testing.
Thank you. It does work better when it's switched on, always. I said that one of the strengths of Meridel's work was that it was never personal. But my response to her was, and that's what I'd like to read. There was no one like her in my life, the beautiful, ample, brown-skinned woman with the deep dimples and the gray braid of hair and the heavy jewelry, the squash blossom necklace and the chain of teeth. My children gave her their teeth to swing around her neck. She was generous with her time, her laughter, her attention. She packed her words close as corn kernels, folding them together so that when one word or one image caught the light, a whole page gleamed. She was older than my own mother, but she always treated me like a fellow, a contemporary. She cared deeply about words, about the hunger for words that rides on human breath. She was one of the women who broke ground with her writing and her living, and she helped to make possible the feminist awakening of the 1970s. I learned the meaning of women's liberation from her, that we cannot truly be free until all women and men everywhere are free, that the triumph and glory of the struggle for justice is precisely in the struggle, and that survival is a form of resistance. When Hurricane Alice, the feminist quarterly that I helped to found, first appeared, she supported us with money, enthusiasm, and with her work. We published her, we reviewed her books, and we dedicated a celebratory issue to her. Don't wait till I'm dead, she said. Do it while I can enjoy it. I remember a conversation between her and Rachel once when I was visiting Hudson. Some conservative politicians had been doing something awful. I don't remember what it was, but it was so awful, I think it was even out of the ordinary for conservative politicians. And we were complaining, we were ragging on them. Why do they do it, said Rachel in exasperation. Why can't they just leave us alone? Because we have something they can never have, said her mother. They're jealous of our abundant life. I felt bound to her by common passions and by uncommon love. She confused me because she lived so clearly in her body, in her flesh, loving its pleasures and remembering its history, and yet she neglected herself. She was old, of course, something I could never quite grasp. Once out of the sun, her skin grew pale. She took off the heavy necklaces. Her body began to fade, breaking down and then going on, and then breaking down again. Her abundant life overflowed her arthritic hands, her shrunken mouth, her bed, her little wheeled chair. I would like to think that she chose this moment to leave while the big birds are migrating, the tundra swans and the eagles. She's joined the women going over the prairie.
I would like to introduce Mary Pruitt.
For Meridel. I bring love from Women's Studies and the faculty at Minneapolis Community College, where Meridel nurtured generations of faculty and students. She taught us our social justice history, and we promise, Meridel, that we will continue teaching this history. This is from Crusaders. Now I have always cried to these forebears, and cried to them for answers, for compasses, and seen their deeds, their actions solid and muscular. They have always put a marker up at the place of disaster, guided your hand to the fissure of the mortgage and the quitclaim. They have kept records of the long trail of tears, the battle of Wounded Knee, and how many were killed by government bad beef. Kept the bone splinter and the shoes of the dead child. Now, in a moment of crisis and cold, they point out where the warm ash of the old fires can give you warmth, where strength is cached. I even catch their heraldic voices in the wind of struggle.
I'd like to introduce Agnes Muda. There's going to be some lyrics to a song being passed around during this time.
I saw Meridel about a month ago, after not having seen her for several years. I was recalling with her our many long drives along St. Croix, and the stories she told me, and sometimes the songs we sang as we rode. I started telling her the stories she had told me, like about the time after she had gotten paid for her first story and had gone in a boat across the river to get coffee and sugar and flour. I went in a boat, she said. Yes, imagine that, she said. And now I was telling her the stories, and she loved things. She loved the stories as much as I had loved them when she told them to me. I was so happy to be able to give a little back to her. The first time I met Meridel was at a friend's house. I listened to her and heard her beautiful, loving voice telling stories. I was very lonely in my life right then. I had 5 children in 7 years, and I missed being near my family. I did something very bold and not like me that evening, something very primitive, really. I asked Meridel if she would come home with me. She did. She met my children and my husband, saw who I was, and I felt that she knew who I was. It's true she encouraged me to write and sing, and I just finished my doctorate in musical arts, but in a way, what is most important is that she knew me and that she let me know her, and she loved me and she let me love her. I know all of us can say that. I want to read something from Rites of Ancient Ripening that I had memorized for most of my life. Sprang seed to wind. Before you came, I never slept with hope or hoped for flesh. Sprang seed to wind, spiraled petal to light, or leapt from root to calyx, or sprang through time and space alive. Child, you always bring the summer of earth and flesh. The summer comes, for they say and I say that all bloom and flesh, all passes through spike and ovary, whistle and breath, constant love, multiplied, naked, and forever, perpetual child. And now I'd like to sing, and once you've heard this, maybe you can join me, a song that was written 2 words of Meridel's. She was working at one time on something that at the time she called the Gospel of the Pit. And this song is sung, I believe, by a character who is like Demeter. I am the meadow, I'm with you all till the end of time. Call me, and I will come. All our mothers come, oh call us and come. It all comes in whatever you got left. Call, call, and enter each other. Spring light and heat return after the winter. Heat and blood and memory and the owl's sound and the hello of our old fathers. Oh, the long song, the happy nipples, the risen of the womb. I am the meadow, I'm with you all to the end of time. Call me, and I will come. All our mothers come, oh call us and come. It all comes in whatever you got left. Call, call, and enter each other. Let's just do that first part. I am the meadow, I'm with you all to the end of time. Call me, and I will come. All our mothers come, oh call us and come. It all comes in whatever you got left. Call, call, and enter each other.
Now, I would like to ask my younger sister, Catherine, to come up here, and me and her are going to read one of Meridel's poems. I am a crazy woman with a painted face on the streets of Gallup. I invite men into my grave for a little wine. I am a painted grave, hollow woman, hooting for callers in the night. Black bats over the sun sing to me. The horned toad sleeps in my thighs. My grandmothers gave me songs to hear, but the white man buys me cheap without song or word. My dead children appear, and I play with them. Bridged of time and my grief, remembering. Who will calm the ruins and the graves, the corn maiden violated as the land? I am
a child in my eroded dust. I remember feathers of the hummingbird and the virgin corn laughing on the cob. Maize defend me, prairie wheel around me. I run beneath the guns and the greedy eye. And hurricanes of white faces knife me, but like fox and smoke, I gleam among the thrushes and light your streets.
Now I'd like to introduce my cousin Kim, who's going to be introducing the next couple of people. I'd like to introduce Deborah Lesueur. And her daughter Ryan. And Woody.
My grandmother's daughter, my mother, has asked my sister and myself to read a few words from Rites of Ancient Ripening. Let's see, where are we?
these are excerpts from
Yeah.
them that were picked out. I am luminous with age. In my lap I hold the valley. I see on the horizon what has been taken. What is gone lies prone, fleshless. In my breast I hold the middle valley. The corn kernels cry to me in the fields. Take us home.
The light was brighter then. Now spiders creep at my eye's edge. I peek between my fingers at my father's dust. The old stones have been taken away. There is no path.
Are those flies or bats or mother eagles? I shrink, I cringe. Trees tilt upon like young men, tilt upon me like young men. The bowl I made I cannot lift. All is running past me.
Do not look for me till I return, rot of greater summers. Struck from fire and dark, mother struck to future child.
Unbud me now, unfurl me now. Flesh and fire, burn, requicken, death. I would like to talk about some memories of my grandmother. My first memory, sense experience of you, is of a warm, quiet hum. No fear, no tumult, but a presence that enveloped me, quieted me, enabled me to breathe. I have almost always had that as a refuge, a place to go for recreation. All I need to do is to find that place inside me that knows and experiences Meridel, and I'm there. It's a place that celebrates a human being for all their strengths and weaknesses, a place of hope, a place of growing, a place of growing oneself into the best self one can be. You have always nurtured me. You have always nurtured me in the knowledge that, as imperfect as one might be, it is possible to strive to be your very best, and for everyone else to strive to be your very best. Thank you for being my grandmother, and thank you for being you. Now I thank everybody for coming and helping us celebrate my mother. And I came here to say goodbye to her body and to celebrate the freeing of her spirit. And just such an honor for me to be with all of you who have nurtured her throughout the years. She has appreciated so many of you, maybe all of you. I don't know all of you. But public speaking doesn't run, I mean, you don't inherit it, so this is very difficult for me. But I had this waking dream before I came, where I realized how I was born from her, and I always in some way was in her. And then when I heard that she died, it was like a sound, and everything reversed, and I was no longer in her because that body that was gone. And suddenly I felt how I carried her spirit and carry her now because I still have this body on the earth. So I wrote this. Goodbye, dear body, dear temple of Meridel. You have served her well, so many adventures,
so many loves and learning. Your dear head and eyes and mouth full of ideas and words and song. Your dear breath full of nurturance, milk and honey. Your dear heart warm and bleeding, full of pain and joy. Goodbye, dear Billy, source of our home. Goodbye, butterfly fingers racing over typewriter keys, spelling out poems of our lives, survival songs and politics of love. Goodbye, hips that swung to the music that you loved. Goodbye, legs, beautiful legs, running over prairies, swimming in the river, tramping around the country by car, by bus, collecting our stories to feed us in cold times and challenge us to wakeful creation. Goodbye to your dear body that I have been connected to for 67 years. Home of my creation. I was always part of your body. Now it's goodbye to that home. It has ended. Now, instead of me being part of you, you are part of me. Like lightning struck for the child born, death has taken so long, but suddenly it's over. Everything has switched, turned around, upside down. I carry you now. You are free. Be gone. I love you. Goodbye.
It is my pleasure to introduce my baby brother, Mark Tilson, and my cousin, Lucas.
This is from the Meridel's video, My People Are My Home. The fertile land, wind blows on us like animals alone, unseen in our time. The delicate strong odor of off the delicate spring. I hope you will be like these things. I hope you will glisten through the glisten ancient light, the same beauty in leaf or wild rabbit, wild sweet beauty of limb or eyes. I think of these wild animals now carrying their young, crouching in their dark, under the brush with a brute sense of land, the wind, and their delicate nostrils. Silent, alive, they sit in the dark shadow of greedy world. There's something wild about us too.
Something tender and wild about me having you as a child, about you crouching so secretly here. There's something very tender and wild about it. We two are at the mercy of many hunters. I really know we're as helpless, as wild as a bay, as a tender wild animal threatened by the machines, the cars, the engines, the destruction. I put my hand where you lie, so silently. I hope you come listening with life, power. With the charm you come, blooms upon a feathers of birds. I hope you will be a warrior in a fearful change, so all may live.
I I'd like to introduce Mark Davidhoff.
Thank you. I think of all the hours that I've spent with Rachel and Kenny at the river, and all the work and pleasure that I've done with their children over so many years. I heard about Meridel's death by calling Martha Bowes in San Francisco yesterday morning. She was about to drive Deborah to the airport. And this morning I was reading both papers and I was crying, not because of Meridel's death, but because of so little truth in the media. Here was some truth on the front pages about one of us. That's what made me cry. Now, I called a couple of friends, and I want to read a few quotes. I called Howard Zinn last night. He had never met Meridel, but Meridel is quoted in his book, A People's History of the United States. And I read that passage about Meridel's feelings getting involved with the 1934 Teamsters truckers strike, her motivation and what it meant and felt like to her. So Howard said, I quote Meridel in People's History, one of the extraordinary people in our history, a great model for young people about how to live one's life. Then I talked with our friend Margaret Randall last night, and Margaret said this: Meridel was the only person I knew who I could count on for real long-range perspective. When activists in different fronts would grow weary and discouraged, she would remind us of the struggles she had witnessed and in which she had participated. And she helped us understand that the pendulum may swing long, but it always swings back again. Thank you, Meridel, for your fighting life. I know you are still at it somewhere. Love, Margaret. One story for me, can't resist, Rachel. In about 10 years ago, 1986, I had Meridel and I were invited to speak at a conference in La Crosse. And so I drove, and as we were going down along the Mississippi, she was describing to me all the struggles that had gone on. The button workers here, people she knew, writers, activists, and so on. So as we were coming near the college at La Crosse, I said, Meridel, you're speaking in the morning, and I'm speaking tonight. Why don't you come and hear me? I'll sure as hell will get up in the morning early to hear you. What are you going to do? And she said, well, I wrote my talk because I have an awful lot to say. And I wanted to include many complex thoughts. So when we arrived at the college, there were 5 young women who were absolutely excited and elated that Meridel would spend the night at their house. And she came to hear me and she said to me, pretty good talk. And I said, I'll see you in the morning. In the morning, Hundreds of people got up very early to hear Meridel. When we were driving back, I said, Meridel was a hell of a talk, but I didn't see any paper or notes. And she said to me, God damn it, I left the damn thing at home, so I winged it.
Okay, the lights are gonna dim so nobody gets scared. Mark, Molly, and Catherine are going to say a poem, and there'll be a slideshow.
Alright, the slides presented are family photos gathered by Gail Ellis. Sorry. We'll be reading Rites of Ancient Ripening.
I am luminous with age. In my lap I hold the valley. I see on the horizon what has been taken. What is gone lies prone, fleshless. In my breast I hold the middle valley. The corn kernels cry to me in the fields, take us home.
Like corn I cry in the last sunset, gleam like plums, my bones shine in fever.
Smoked with the fires of age, herbal, I contain the final juice. Shadow, I crouch in the ash, never breaking to fire.
Winter iron bow, unseen my buds.
Hanging close, I live in a beloved bone, speaking in the marrow, alive in green memory.
The light was brighter then. Now spiders creep between my eyes. I peek between my fingers at my father's dust.
The old storms have been taken away. There is no path.
The fathering fields are gone. The wind is stronger than it used to be. My stone feet far below me grip the dust. I run in crouching corners with thin dogs. I tie myself to the children like a kite. I fall and burst between the sacred human tree. Release my seed and let me fall. For the shadow of the grave earth, let me fall.
Without child or man, I turn, I fall.
Into shadows, the dances are gone.
My salted pelt stirs at the final warmth and pounding death, stretch and tan death.
Hang me up, ancestral shield, against the dark.
Burn and bright and take me quick, pod and light me into dark.
Are those flats? Are those flies or bats or mother eagles? I shrink, I cringe. Shining trees tilt upon me like young men. The bowl I made I cannot lift, all is running past me. The earth tilts and turns over me. I am shrinking and lean against the warm walls of old summers.
With knees and chin, I grip the dark. Swim out of the shores of night in the old meadows. Remember, buffalo hunts. Great hunters returning. Councils of the fathers to be fed. Round sacred fires, the faces of profound deer who gave themselves for food.
We face the east and the golden pollen, sacrifice of brothers.
The little seeds of my children with faces of mothers and fathers.
Old in my flesh in future summers.
My body a canoe, turning to stone, moves among the bursting flowers of memory. Through the shadows of flowers and food, I float and wave to my grandchildren in the teepees of many fires, in the winter of many slain.
I hear the mourning. I ground my corn daily in my pestle many children. Summer grasses in my daughters, strength in fathers in my sons. All was ground in the body's bowl, corn dyed to bread, women to children, deer to the hunters.
Fires of our people, wombs of mothering night, guardian mothers of the corn, hillborn torrents of the plains, sing all grinding songs of healing herbs.
Many tasseled summers flower in my old bones now.
Ceremonials of fire lodge me in the deep earth, grind my harvested seed.
The rites of ancient ripening make my flesh bloom, and summer winds stir in my smoked bowl. Do not look for me till I return, wrought with greater summers.
Struck from fire and dark, mother struck to future child. Unbund me now, unfurl me now, flesh and fire.
Burn,
requiescent,
death. I'd like to introduce Becca Tilson, my cousin. Thanks, guys. Hello. Oh. Hi. My name is Rebecca Tilson, and I didn't really write anything, and so I was just gonna come up and talk for a minute. I promise. But my favorite story of my great grandma is one where she is walking, doing errands. She was younger. She was doing errands, walking in and out of stores, and there was these FBI agents following her, which was not very new to her. And they were following her, and it was cold out, and so she got kind of sick of it. So she went up to the window and knocked on the door and said, "Since we're both going to the same place, do you think you could give me a ride?" And so I like that story a lot. But I'm kind of in culture shock because I just got off the plane last night and was bombarded by all this families, and it's neat. But like Thursday morning I found out, and then Friday morning I'm on the plane from Washington, and it's weird. But I was trying to think about what I wanted to say, and I knew that it wasn't going to be like a quiet funeral like other people's great grandmas would have. But one of my favorite memories of my grandma is that she always watched Sesame Street. I remember her being in the basement at my grandparents' house, and I would go down there, and she would watch. The TV was on, and Sesame Street was on, and I thought she must be a cool old lady to watch Sesame Street, because she was the only adult I had ever seen that would had that TV on when I wasn't there. So I would curl up next to her on the couch. We would both lay. I don't know how it would fit, and I would fall asleep, and I would wake up in the car, and it always had this mystical feeling for me, because I never understood why I woke up in the car. I was on Grandma's couch, and I was in the car, and it was weird. But that's my memory. I also remember that my family made me feel really good about my writing, because they told me that I inherited my grandma's ability to spell, and that we both didn't conform to the patriarchal ideas of grammar and everything. And that made me feel better when, like, at school I never was good at the spelling with B's and stuff like that. So when I walked in last night, it was cold and it's rainy in Washington, really rainy, but not snowy, and I need to prepare to be back here. I didn't need only a day. It wasn't ready nearly enough for me. So I walked in, and there was family and hugs and kisses and this and that, and my great-grandma was in the living room, and I walked in and I knelt down by these pictures, and all of a sudden I had all these cousins in back of me telling me which pictures looked like me. And this one, and that one, oh, but not the nose, and that one, and that one. And it was so nice, and I hadn't seen them, and they didn't say, "Oh, hi, Becca, how was college, how was everything?" They said, "That one looks like you," and that one, but not this one over here, she's 80. And it was just such a wonderful feeling, and I really loved it, and it gave me, like, fuzzy warmth. I think that's all I have to say for now. Oh, thank you. But I do have a letter here from Winona LeDuc, who is the founder of the White Earth Land Recovery Project. Oh, really quick, if Mick Labriola is here, can he come up, please? Not here, over there. And she has been speaking on Native issues all over the world, as well as women's issues and land issues. And some of you may have voted for her for president, vice president. Too bad she didn't win. But this is a letter for you from her, and it says, all that we do today is made infinitely easier by those who have struggled before us. That is what I always remember as I walk down the path of life. As I look out to the northern Minnesota cornfields, aging farmhouses, silos, and forests, I hear Meridel's words and voice, and sometimes, if I look close, I see her standing there, with my ancestors. Her words find in the most stark of places, and sometimes they are my words as well. And now as I look through the people I have struggled with and stood beside, and as well see her face and her smile, because I see that what I have today has been passed on by her, well, with great strength and with beauty. Yeah, that's it. Except I was just thinking last night that maybe besides having her in my heart, and maybe I had her in my cheekbones too, because everyone kept telling me I did. Next, we have, change of schedule, we have my Auntie Jossie and Auntie Judy. Welcome.
I'm nervous. My thoughts are to thank my grandmother for everything that she has given me. I learned as I grew and as I continue to grow that our family has a unique sense of justice and fairness, and I take that in raising my 5 children and my grandchild, and in my work, and in my play, and in my love for my sister. And I get that from my grandmother. One of the things in the last 2 days that I learned is that Jossie and I had the same favorite poem. So we'll be reading that. When I've been listening to people talk about Meridel and the things she taught them, and the memories and the feelings they have of her, the strongest feeling that I have listening is how much she taught me about how to be a mother. And she often, I can remember when she would take care of us, which was not very often, but sometimes when we were really little, and there was a time when I broke my finger while she was babysitting, but she didn't believe it was broken, and she just said, put ice on it, go to bed, we'll see you in the morning. And I realized I do that to my children. They'll be okay, just put a little ice on it. And when I was thinking about why was this poem that Judy and I are going to read so important, it was because it was one of the things she taught me about raising sons. And she recognized that most of the oppressors in the world were white men, and that those were the people that I was raising, and that there was a way to do it so that they wouldn't be oppressors in the world. And she often talked with me about that. And when we were reflecting on what was our favorite reading, I thought that's why this one is mine. None of it was true about our enemies. We have none.
Women never birth enemy faces.
An enemy face is never born.
No walls, barriers, closed wounds.
The barren and the breastless summer sings.
To the face of lovers.
Birth is with others and given.
This mural is done by Marilyn Lindstrom, and we like to recognize her. It's beautiful. Next, we have my Auntie Rosemary, who took over Morrill Hall to lead the demonstration to create an African American Studies program at the University of Minnesota. So, with that intro, here she is.
It works. Couple things. To honor and to celebrate Meridel's life, in my opinion, is to honor and to celebrate the best in ourselves. I'm actually reminded of a lot of different encounters and experiences with her. One kind of stands out. I live in Milwaukee, and she was in Milwaukee to do a reading. And I was there, and it was almost probably this time of day, but the room was really packed. And she had me to stand up, and she said to this audience, "This is my granddaughter." And they were all kind of still looking because they couldn't figure that out. The other thing is that whenever I would come back to Minnesota, she would always give me a book or something to read. And she really encouraged me to practice my craft. By occupation, I'm a teacher, but I'm also a poet, and so she would always ask me about my writing and whether or not my group was still together and we were still reading. And I haven't read in about 5 years, but there's one poem by Meridel that I really like, and in fact it hangs in my office above my desk, and I'm going to try and read it today. It's entitled Arise. And the reason why I want to read Arise is because in my mind, when I think about Meridel, Meridel is a freedom fighter. And on the day that she died, I got an email message from Mahmoud El-Kati here in the Twin Cities saying to me that freedom fighters, they just keep on struggling, that it's never over, that you just keep on struggling. So I think that Meridel leaves a whole lot of freedom fighters, and I think a lot of freedom fighters are in this room. Here it is, Arise. They came right over the old African horizon. They came wave after wave with their wounds bandaged in flower-woven bandages. They rose in great waves, earth in their flesh. They came out of slavery upon which the Western world was built. They came, appearing in their massive sowing power. They came rising out of the mortgage-stolen country. They came out of the corrupt city of Nairobi. The skyscrapers actually embedded in the starving breast of the thousands of starving farmers and workers. The property sign brazenly, Standard Oil, Exxon, General Motors, all of the predators from my country now looting the earth and the cheap labor of living beings. They came in thunder carrying their dead children. They drummed and danced and shook the gourd and flesh and power and survival. Don't stop me, the Sudan woman cried. I came to speak of hunger. Don't stop me. I appear at last. I am not supposed to be here. I was not supposed to survive. We are supposed to be gone, but we appear in the thunder of our solidarity. We claim our earth. We claim our flesh. We have been naught. We shall be all. I saw them. I am an old woman and I began to dance. I will never be afraid again. I will never feel alone again. Dying in the old deadly world with the murderers, the assassins, the vultures. I would never leave the rising power of the oppressed. The earth shall rise on new foundations, dancing, singing, and the touch of love and the hosanna of freedom. They come. I will never leave the rising power of the oppressed.
Thank you. Next we have sorry. It's kind of confusing. Next we have Hannah Tilson and company reading a message from Heather Baum.
Hi, I'm not much on public speaking either, so I'm going to have to. Heather asked me to come up and, is this on? And read something that she wrote today, and this is her daughter, Jenny and Jessie. Before I say that, read what she wrote, I'd like to thank my cousin and aunt for sharing Meridel with us all these years, because I know that couldn't have always been an easy thing to do. And this is from my sister Heather. Today when I learned you'd passed, I knew a great era of optimism was at an end and the world had changed forever. My mind flashed back to that brilliant, cold November day when you sat in our tiny living room and told us the stories and beautiful memories you carried of my dear Grandma Lucy. Our lives were made full by you, woman, born into the past that was another world. You taught us love of the ordinary things and the beauty in our own struggles. You could never know the value of the lessons you left us. How could you know our children would fight to grow, left us adrift in the absence of the sacred? How could you know that our lives were golden threads which bound us to a world that would never again be? Today, as I search for meaning in my life, it is memories of the lives that the grandmothers that drives me on. The many mornings my thoughts travel into the murky past when we stood on the clear, clean smells and tastes of life so much for granted. They were the solid things, and it seemed always there would be. The call of the sparrow, the laugh of the children, the warmth of the soil, the work of the people. These are the things that you taught us to believe in. When grandmothers pass, we know suddenly we are grown. Now we are becoming carriers of the memory. Mothering each other and the earth is what we must all finally learn to do. This is my job now and the job of all my brothers and sisters. And if you'll bear with me for a moment, I wrote something when I learned Meridel had passed away, and it's just something I'd like to share with you. And I'll make it as brief as possible. I guess it was during 1977 and maybe some in 1978, Meridel came to live with us, me, my mother, and Lucille Driftmeyer from Ness in Shenandoah, Iowa, not too far from Murray, Iowa, where Meridel was born. After a spell, I began to believe that Meridel was there to mourn the loss of her teeth. For while she was there, she had her few remaining teeth pulled. Lucille made arrangements with a local dentist to have a full set of dentures made. I don't think Meridel had the money to pay for them, but it didn't really matter. This was in the time before she had received her National Endowment Award, I think. And but Lucille, having recently suffered through the same painful and undignified ordeal, insisted, "You can't go around toothless." Her teeth, which had served her so well, those teeth which had enunciated the Annunciation were gone. Declaring herself an old crone, my great aunt Meridel made the ancient rites of passage. So Meridel wrote an ode to her teeth and bid them goodbye. She had a time of it, adjusting to her dentures and learning to speak with them. She'd giggle with surprise and amusement when they would fall unexpectedly without warning. They have a voice of their own, she clacked. Without them it was difficult to be heard, and so now she wrote an ode to her new teeth. Meridel adjusted, but was never entirely comfortable with her new teeth. At the time, I was too young, really, to understand that it was probably the depression, the years of poor nutrition, and perhaps even starvation, as well as a lack of affordable dental care that had caused great Aunt Meridel Aunt Meridel to become toothless. She often said that she had been rediscovered by the women's movement, but I think she reinvented herself right there in Lucille's living room in front of the crackling fire on a cold day in February. She devised a plan. What she needed was an agent to promote her work, her writing, to book her lectures. And as she schemed, her dream grew. She wanted to start an organization to promote not only her writing, but those of other writers too. And as I sat there listening, I began to realize she intended for that agent to be me. Thinking back now, it was a ludicrous plot. After all, I was just a kid, a very immature 17-year-old with raging hormone disease. But the hormones didn't stand a chance against Meridel. What's more insane is it actually worked. She named the agency Circle Booking, Hannah Tilson and Associates. That would be my mom, Lucille, and Meridel. An agent for writers. Mom went downtown and rented a P.O. box. Lucille had some letterhead printed. Meridel said, here's some quotes. I need another. Write to Tilly Olsen and tell her what we're doing. Ask her for a quote. She will help me, she said. And then handed me her address. Write to Tilly Olsen? Me? I glanced down at the quote sources from the New Yorker, Carl Sandburg, Nelson Eldgren. Meridel dictated the press release. I typed it. Lucille edited it, and I typed it again. Mom corrected the spelling, and I typed it again. And finally, one day, the letter went out. It seemed like hundreds and hundreds of press releases, but I'm sure it was only close to 100. The letters went out, and people wrote back. Tilly wasn't the only one to write. Professors from all over the country wrote, and I don't know if they ever suspected that Circle Booking was really Meridel. I can't recall how many engagements I arranged for her over that summer of 1977, but I know that my career as a literary agent came to an abrupt halt after I forgot to make travel arrangements from the University of Morris to Moorhead, or perhaps it was vice versa. In any case, Meridel ended up hitchhiking to the event, and so it's a wonder. I often wonder if Circle Booking had perhaps laid the work for what lay ahead, some better things to come. And it's a good thing too, because she'd probably still be out stranded on Highway 10.